Good evening, everyone. It's Wednesday, the 29th, 2020. This is part 2 to the video I posted yesterday. Just to bring everyone else up to speed that has not seen the first video, this video is an information piece for people that are going to be getting a hemorrhoidectomy or hemorrhoid removal surgery, just so they kind of understand what to expect. I had to have this procedure done on the 27th. I went in at noon. I was released by 4 p.m. I was sent home. If you watch the first video, it will bring you up to speed. This video is day 2. So I'm just going to start with this and we'll go from there. So it is Wednesday the 29th, 2020. It is approximately 10:47 in the evening. But at the same time I made my last video yesterday. Today has been kind of up and down. I slept a lot. I find that when you have Epsom salt baths, the stitch line actually becomes loose as you make it wet. Mine are the dissolvable stitches. As you make it wet, the stitch expands, and then once you get out of the Epsom salt bath and it starts to dry, the stitch tightens up again, which does cause a little bit of pain. It can be controlled with the moderate use of Tylenol. For those of you that didn't watch my first video, I elected not to take the opiates as they constipate you and it's going to make it harder to pass the gel cap. So for those of you that didn't see the first video, inside is a piece of gauze about yay long, and hooked on the end is a gel capsule. And as you have Epsom salt baths and liquid is drawn into the bowel, the capsule will dissolve and it will be passed. Now, from what I've been told from some doctors and other people that have had this done and via the internet, passing this capsule is like giving birth, is what I was told. I was also told, though, that this surgery is extremely painful and that I was going to be dying. And to be honest with you, I mean, I've watched a lot of videos on YouTube. I've watched a lot of stuff on the internet. This is not the case. So for those of you that are petrified of getting this done because it feels like you're going to give birth, I don't think that's the case. Now, mind you, the capsule, you're supposed to pass it within 3 to 5 days. I was told by my surgeon that passing the capsule is what feels like giving birth. Understand that pretty much what's been done, and I'm going to use this as an example because we're trying to keep this video PG as possible. Let's say this is the opening to the rectum. I have a stitch line that runs from the outside in like this on both sides. So when I pass the capsule from the inside out, it is going to rub on the stitch line on either side, which is probably going to hurt. And because I haven't experienced it yet, I can't really state as to how bad it's going to hurt, but that will be coming soon in the future videos. Just so you're all aware, nothing on these videos will be inappropriate. There will be no images of me passing this. There will be no video of me like that you will physically see of me passing this. I did say yesterday in my first video that I will show my demeanor and my character before I pass it if I can, and directly after I pass it, so you can see what state of mind I'm in, my body language. I find that people over-exaggerate a lot on the internet. So when they're like sick or they had a surgery, it's like they make it sound worse than what it is. Maybe that's in their head. Maybe it's because they're in pain, they're irritable. I've been managing all of this on my own just by using Tylenol, Tylenol extra strength. You can't take Advil as it thins the blood and it could cause issues at the stitch line. With that being said, day 2 was a little bit more, I'm dragged out, I'm bagging it. I can feel that my body is worn a little bit. And the tolerance, my moderate pain tolerance, which I would say is probably a high pain tolerance to most people. So most people that say they have a moderate pain tolerance probably have a low pain tolerance. And where I say mine's moderate, most people would probably be like, your pain tolerance is a little higher than what you think. With that being said, it's been okay. It's very hard to sleep. I'm sleeping 2-3 hours at a time. Every time I go to roll over, I end up pulling the stitch a little, which causes a sharp pain. And unfortunately, you know, it wakes you up and then it's very hard to get back to sleep. But you know, this dying, you know, feeling like you're gonna die and hurtling because you're so in pain. This afternoon, I haven't driven yet because it's just not a good idea. My other half drove us out and we had some tea and, you know, went and got some gas for the family vehicles and stuff. The ride, I'm in a 1500 Ram. I didn't feel really any of the bumps at all. I'm sitting in the chair of the Ram right now. It's heated seats and it actually is very comfortable. It takes away a lot of the itching and a lot of that, you know, stinging feeling, the heat being there. With that being said, day 2, I do find that there's a clear liquid that is leaking out, as well as a little bit of like what I would suggestively say is watery blood. And I'm thinking it's from the wound. As the wound is sealing and as it is healing, it's pushing out, you know, whatever moisture that it needs to get out of there. Pain-wise, if I was to say 1 out of 10, 10 being severe pain, have to go to the hospital, 1 being, you know, I'm going for a jog, I'd be sitting probably in between a 4 and a 6 on day 2. This afternoon was actually more like a 3-4 until we went out, and then once I walked around a bit, and, you know, I put the gas in the truck, I walked into the store, I paid the clerk, I came back out, got back in the truck, then we drove, went to Timmy's, I got out, walked into Timmy's, whatever. So very small walking. It's not like I went and walked around the block 3 times. I literally walked from the truck in the parking lot inside a store and back twice. And then I walked around for maybe 5 minutes in the downtown area of where I live. Less than 2 kilometers. And that was enough that at that point I was tired. I was physically exhausted. Not just mentally or psychologically, and not from pain, but I think just more from that irritability, that stress, you know, and the feeling, the itchy feeling, the kind of stinging feeling. If I had to make you understand the stinging, it is a very moderate or a very light stinging feeling, not moderate. So compare this stinging feeling to a paper cut on your finger. Instead of it being a paper cut on your finger, it would be a paper cut that is on your body, like where the wound is. So it becomes itchy, it's a very small stinging. You don't even really notice, you know, unless you move a certain way, one way or the other, and you pull the stitch line, then that feeling would become much more intense, and at that point you would have to readjust and kind of make yourself comfortable to make it go away. Same thing I said yesterday, just something I thought I'd bring up, because in a lot of my videos I smoke. I'm very sorry for those of you that are smokers and you're trying not to smoke. That's not my intention. But unfortunately, we don't smoke in my house, and I don't make my videos in front of my family. So I try to make my video when I'm out in the truck relaxing on the heated seat, and there is on the occasion you will see me smoke. The doctor told me that smoking actually slows the healing down drastically. So if you are a heavy smoker and you are smoking, what I would suggest, and just so you're aware, I'm not a medical doctor, so this is just my opinion. You know, for every 5 cigarettes that you have, you should have an Epsom salt bath. So the Epsom salt bath is magnesium sulfite, and it actually speeds up the process of healing. As much as you don't think it will, it does. When you're sitting in the bath, because the water is under pressure, some of that water in Epsom salt actually goes inside. It penetrates the wound, it helps clean out the wound, and it helps remove bacteria. So things like when you pass gas and your sweat and all of that stuff, unfortunately, because of the way the body's designed, it runs down your back, down between your, you know, your butt, and it sits right where the wound is. So an Epsom salt bath it's going to be your best friend while you're in there. Like I said, sitting in the bathtub is very relaxing. The Epsom salt does not burn. It does not sting the stitch line. It does not sting the hole. And I can say this because I have my stitch line, if you're watching the beginning of the video, actually is on the outside of my butt cheek, and it goes inside of my anus. So my wound is actually on the outside and it goes inside on both sides. And I have sat in the bathtub with hot water, with the Epsom salt. It is raw, but the Epsom salt does not sting it. So for those people that have that feeling like, oh, I'm going to sit in the bathtub and because it's salt and it's a cut, it's going to burn, it is not going to do that. or I have not experienced that. So unless you have very sensitive skin or, you know, something else going on that's not the same as my predicament, then it might be different. In my predicament, I have not experienced any stinging from the Epsom salt bath. It is actually extremely relaxing. It does take tension off the stitch line. It takes a little bit of that pressure off. But when you get out, I would suggest that if you're going to have the bath, make sure that the area is prepped for when you get out. So you already have towels, and it is warm. If you get out of a hot bath with Epsom salts and you step into the cold air, that stitch line will shrink instantly, and it will really, really hurt. So try your best not to come out of the bath and into a cold environment, because that stitch line will massively shrink, and that's what causes that pain and that pressure right on the opening where the wound is. Other than that, today I've been sticking close to home, you know, except for the little walk that I went for. I wouldn't suggest walking very far, just simply because if you get to the end point and then you're in pain, you're not going to be able to get back. So realize that as far as you go forward, you have to come back in order to, you know, succeed with what you want to do. Whatever you would normally go as your 100%, I would cut it in half. So go 50, that way you know you have that 50 to come back. Other than that, you know, like I said, it's been difficult. I'm not going to say it isn't. You are going to need a second party. My other half has taken 4 days off work. I would think that after the 4th day, you're going to be okay if you've passed the gel cap and everything settles properly the way it's supposed to. But for the first 2 days, mobility is like, if you're going 1 out of 10, mobility is 2. You cannot move around on the second day that much. On the first day. On the second day, your pain tolerance is a little higher, and then your mobility is probably gone from a 2 to 4. Today I moved around quite a bit, but like I said, after the walk and going to get some gas, and you know, and I wasn't driving, just being a passenger, but those little walks, when I got home at around 5 o'clock and I slept until 9. So I immediately came in, had a shower, rinsed off, had an Epsom salt bath, and my body was begging it. So I laid down and I passed out. I do find that if you are going to sleep for more than 4-hour increments, I would suggest having the Tylenol beside your bed. And I would also suggest that the minute you wake up, take one of those Tylenols with some water and sit for at least 15 minutes. Let the medication take effect. Or else for that first 20 minutes that you're up, you're going to be irritable. You're going to be painful. You might say things to, you know, your loved ones that you're going to regret afterwards. I'm not saying it's an easy process. It is difficult, but I'm not saying it's impossible, and I'm not saying it's hard. It is not a hard process. I have done things that are much harder when it comes to, like, for instance, broken bones. It is harder to sit for a month with a broken arm than it is to sit for 4 days with this situation. And with broken bones and other injuries, you know, there isn't as many things that you can do with this situation that kind of mitigates that pain and allows you to have some kind of tolerance. For those of you that didn't see the first movie or the first video, applesauce, Jello, the Habitat soups I find are very fulfilling, but they're still liquid based. So like this French split pea and ham soup from Habitat. The minestrone I would stay away from for the first 2 days because it is red. It has the red 39 dye in it, which you shouldn't be putting in your system for the first 2 or 3 days until you're kind of healed up and the bleeding stopped. But they also have the chicken with rice, the chicken with the wonton noodle, and then they have Italian wedding. They have a couple. So I mean, these soups are more pieces inside, like potato and the pasta and things. You need to put weight on that gel cap if you want to push it out. So how the gel cap works is, as you continue to put food in your body, it goes through your intestine, it ends up in your rectum, and it's sitting on that gel cap. And once there is enough pressure of it sitting on that gel cap and the liquid starts, you know, going around that gel cap, it's going to start instantly melting it. But it's going to take about 3 days to break it down to the size where you're going to be able to pass it. Do not push. So for those of you that want to, it feels like you got to poo, you don't got to poo. That's the stitch line you're feeling. If you go home and you sit on the toilet and you try and poo, you will probably blow out the stitch line. It can cause complications. You could hemorrhage. You might have to return back to the hospital and have the surgery performed again, the stitch part of it, which would be severely painful because it's severely tender. Around the opening of the anus, I have found a lot of bruising. It is a dark blackish purple color, the same as you'd get with a black eye if someone hit you. Bear in mind though, if it looks like the blood has come to the surface, so like for instance, if you've ever hit your arm and it gets like, it's like the blood's under the skin, that could be signs of an arterial bleed. That is dangerous. That is definitely a back to the hospital issue. The other thing I guess I would warn you about is the passing gas and the feeling like you have to poo. So it would probably be better when you sit on the toilet, you're actually putting a lot of pressure by sitting on either side of the toilet. It opens the area, which extends the inside out, and it stretches the stitch. It's extremely painful. I find for passing gas, the best way is to put both your hands like this on a surface and bend your butt out and just slowly, don't push. If it's going to come out, it will come out all on its own. The same with pooing. I think when you get to the point of passing the gel cap, which we will get to that point eventually, and you guys will figure out what's going on, but I think that will be sitting on the toilet. But for the last little bit, as soon as I get into the hot shower, it feels like I have to poo. It's the water hitting the stitch line kind of, getting wet, getting soft, and kind of releasing a bit. So you kind of it feels like something's going to come out, but it isn't. And that feeling will immediately go away. The minute you step out of the water into the normal air environment, the stitch line's going to start to dry instantly. It's going to tighten again. You're going to be in a little bit of pain, but I think the best thing to pass gas if you're in the shower, because the minute you get in the shower and it's wet and it loosens, the stitch line loosens a little bit and it's like, okay, I can let the air out. Perfect. Put your feet in front of you on the ground as if you were going to sit on the toilet, and lean your back against the wall with your hands like this. Put this part of your hand on the back of your hip and let your hand rest against the wall. So the back of your butt cheek is not pressed against the wall. It's actually your hand pressed against the wall and your butt cheek is resting on your hand. At the top where your hip is though. So not the side of your cheek. Go further up. You'll be able to feel the bone where your spine connects. And just kind of lean against the wall. And just, if it's going to come out, it's going to come out. I would not push. That's one suggestion I would make to all of you, is do not attempt to push, even if you're constipated, even if it feels like if you don't have a poo, your stomach's going to blow open and an alien's going to come out. I would not suggest pushing. I have tried on the second day. I was in the shower and I coughed, and just a small amount of coughing, and there was a little bit of bleeding because I stretched the stitch line. So trying to push in any way for the first 3 to 5 days is not a good idea. It's extremely dangerous and extremely painful. With that being said, I think that's pretty much going to conclude day 2. There's not really much more I can tell you, just that it is a tiring experience and it is very irritable. The pain is, like I said, between a 2 and a 6 in the second day, and hopefully it will go down. I know that's a big jump. So it was a 1 to 2 day 1 when I still had the morphine and stuff in my system. Now that it's day 2, there's a little bit more irritability, there's itchiness, there's a little bit of slight stinging, depending on movement and mobility. But overall, it's been productive. I've, like I said, I slept a little bit more today than I did yesterday. But I am managing and I am coping with the pain. So for anybody that needs this done, when you wake up, it's going to be a little different. The day 1, when you wake up at home, you're going to be in pain when that medication wears off. You could probably see my demeanor yesterday compared to today. I'm a little bit more moving around. I'm a little bit more excited. They say 4 to 5 days, and pretty much the healing process has already been more than halfway. You'll be back to your normal, whatever you're doing within a week or 2. don't rush that time. You need that time. You need it. You know, you need to give yourself time to heal. So try your best not to rush the healing process. Other than that, yeah, January 29th, 2020, day 2. And I will release another video tomorrow at around 9:30, 10 o'clock to just give you guys kind of a heads up on day 3. And hopefully sometime, maybe tomorrow afternoon, if I pass the gel cap, then we'll have a video either briefly before and shortly after. Or, oh, see, that part hurts. A little cough like that, you wouldn't realize it, but it hurts. So briefly after and shortly after I pass it, we'll have a video tomorrow. Or if I don't pass it tomorrow, the following day with an update. But there will be a video posted every night at approximately 9:30, 10 until the healing process is done, for those of you that are interested. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe. I mean, I'll keep pushing these videos out if people are interested. I simply decided to make these videos just simply because when I was going to have the surgery done, I went and looked online, and all the videos I watched were traumatizing. It was like, this is so bad, you're going to feel like you're dying and this and that. And unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, that is not the case. I mean, you know, I haven't seen too much on YouTube in the way of this because it's embarrassing, I guess, for most people. But also, there's not much on the internet that suggests, it will just tell you exactly what the paperwork from the hospital will tell you. No one really likes to interject on this stuff and kind of give their own opinion. So with that being said, I hope you guys have a good night, and I look forward to sharing my experiences tomorrow with you tomorrow night. Thank you. Cheers.